The last maple leaf. Thiên An sat by the window, gazing out at the garden drenched in dappled sunlight. The last few maple leaves were falling sparsely, signaling that the cold winter had finally returned, ending the long stretch of warm days. The pure, vibrant yellow and orange of the garden made Thiên An feel, for a fleeting moment, as though she could see Ho's bright, dazzling smile behind the dilapidated wooden fence, or near the cluster of deep crimson climbing roses. If the pair of magpies on the sweet olive tree hadn't suddenly, and quite pointlessly, startled her with a few agitated calls, Thiên An wouldn't have snapped out of her reverie to realize she was utterly alone in the quiet house. Thiên An did not love Ho, everyone in Red Pine Alley knew it, and Ho knew it, too. On their wedding day, the bride, slender as a maple leaf in autumn, wore a magnificent white silk dress, but her smile was forced and melancholic. Mn, her best friend, was in charge of the curtains immediately behind the bridal party, occasionally stealing glances at the groom's radiant smile and feeling a surge of melancholy in her heart. For a very long time, Thiên An had known she was special to Ho. When they were little, the kids in Red Pine Alley often fought, pinched, and scared each other all day. Ho, however, always watched quietly from the background. If anyone bullied Thiên An, Ho would charge out like a guardian of the galaxy to reclaim justice for his little friend. In 10th grade, the class bully, Quan, loved to tease Thiên An. Once, he smeared wet mud secretly inside Thiên An's leather school bag, making her sob uncontrollably. Ho did something that night, and the next morning, both boys came to class with bruised cheeks. After that, Quan never dared to touch Thiên An again. Sometimes, as Thiên An rode her bike to school with Mn, Ho would flash past from behind, tossing items into Thiên An's bike basket, sometimes a cluster of chestnuts, sometimes a handful of figs, or perhaps a few camellia blooms from his mother, saying, "My mom gave these to you. Take them." Seeing Thiên An look displeased, Mn would pout, "Come on, take it. If you don't want it, I'll take it home myself." At 17, Thiên An felt her first pang of romance for a boy named Ton, who was from the Old Town district and studied in the same grade. Ton was tall, fair-skinned, always dressed impeccably, and he could sing and play the piano. When Ton played "The Autumn River of Love" on the piano at the final graduation ceremony, Thiên An, and probably half the girls in the school, thought he was singing just for her. At 18, Mn failed her university entrance exams. Thiên An, Ton, and Ho went to the city for school, then eventually returned home. Ton became a library manager in the district, still neat and elegant. Ho had secured a job in the city but decided to return home, struggling for a while before finally getting hired at an architectural firm in the local town. Thiên An settled into her mother's profession as a handmade ceramics artisan. The young people of Red Pine Alley were used to dating online, chatting lazily, and meeting up at cafes. Some would date for just a few days or go out a few times before quickly ending up at a cheap motel. Ho, however, if he wasn't busy, would visit Thiên An's house every evening, chatting with her parents, the senior artisans. Thiên An would often make excuses to go to Mn's house or hide in her room to avoid him. Ho drank countless pots of lotus tea and ate numerous plates of crispy green rice flakes cake, completely winning over the elderly couple with his conversation, but he could never win Thiên An's heart. The small path leading to Thiên An's house was worn down by Ho's footsteps, while Thiên An kept her mind wandering endlessly in the vague, harmless text message exchanges with Ton. Once, the senior artisan's wife whispered to her, "Where will you find someone as steady and decent as he is, child? A woman should marry the person who loves her, not the person she chases." Thiên An neither argued nor agreed. Mn was now the owner of a used bookstore. She occasionally bought Thiên An treats from the market, roasted chestnuts, sour dried plums, or plums, to share with chili salt in the garden, just like they did in school. One time, Mn wrinkled her nose and said, Hey, Ho is so good, why are you always so distant and cold? Tianan laughed, if he's so good, why don't you marry him? MN turned away, looking fixedly at the still green climbing rose bush, and sighed. Tianan realized her slip and quickly dipped a plum into the chili salt, chewing slowly. Where did you buy these plums, MN? They're so sour. Then the senior artisan felt ill and started losing a worrying amount of weight. The doctor diagnosed him with late-stage lung cancer. His wife collapsed. He spent his entire life making pottery in the clay workshop, drinking rainwater collected from the roof. He rarely touched cigarettes or alcohol. How could he have cancer? But the biopsy was clear. X-rays revealed large, metastasized tumors. His wife could only weep. Their family was modest, they had no health insurance, and the cost of chemotherapy and medicine was enormous. With every round of radiation, the gold bars the artisan's wife had saved for Tianan's wedding slowly disappeared. Knowing the situation, the artisan, in moments of unbearable pain after chemotherapy, would shout at his wife and daughter, demanding to be taken home to die. It was then that Ho brought a wad of cash wrapped in newspaper and placed it in the artisan's wife's hand. Child, our family isn't wealthy. Where did you get this money? It's the rent from the prime lot my parents left me near the market. Please take it for the artisan. Since my parents are gone, please consider me your son or daughter. Inside her room, Tianan heard this, and a soft breeze seemed to blow through her heart. A little over a year after the artisan passed away, Tianan married Ho. On the wedding day, as the procession reached the alley entrance, Tianan looked back and wept. Her deep, clear eyes searched the crowd of friends for the tall, neat figure of Tom. At the wedding reception, Tom played The Autumn River of Love on the piano, his voice full of heartfelt sorrow. Tianan felt the tumultuous excitement of her 18th year rushing back. Tom still seemed to be playing just for her. If only, when the artisan was frail and his wife asked what he wanted to eat, he had asked for sweet glutinous rice balls like he had as a child. If Tom had been like Ho, searching every corner of the town on a Sunday to find the best dessert stall for him. If only, when the herbalist said his condition would improve with cranberry juice, Tom had been like Ho, stripping off his jacket in the biting winter cold to buy the ingredients. Then perhaps, before closing his eyes, the artisan would not have placed Tianan's hand in Ho's, sincerely entrusting his daughter to him. Married now, Tianan lived in the small house Ho had built at the end of Red Pine Alley. Ho didn't play music, he was rough-skinned, sun-tanned, and didn't dress stylishly. Sometimes, Tianan mentally compared Ho to the image of Ton at the piano, and the contrast felt jarring. Every time she heard The Autumn River of Love on the TV or radio, Tianan's heart fluttered, as if her 18th year was just on a long vacation, and would eventually return. Or perhaps, her marriage to Ho was just a childhood game. When the game ended, each child would go back to their own home. So, when Ho woke up early every morning to prepare a bowl of minced meat congee or fried egg noodles, so that the food was ready on the table when Tianan finished brushing her teeth, she wasn't particularly moved. Or when, on a windy day, she mentioned her mouth felt bland, and Ho had a fragrant bowl of pumpkin and pork rib soup waiting for her after work, she wasn't deeply touched. It seemed that for Ho, dedicatedly taking care of others had become his joy. If Tianan liked something, Ho would move mountains to provide it. In the rainy season, when they couldn't afford to pave the entire garden, Ho meticulously laid small pebbles into a beautiful walkway. This way, if Tianan went out to tend the gourds or inspect the cactus, mud wouldn't cling to her fair, rosy heels. When Tianan excitedly brought home a pair of young magpies, Ho spent an entire Sunday gathering scrap wood, cutting, carving, and chiseling to make a pretty little cage, which he placed high on the sweet olive tree. As he gazed into Tianan's twinkling eyes, The splinter that had painfully lodged in his thumb while he was cutting the wood no longer hurt. The only time Ho truly surprised and delighted Thiên An was one late autumn morning. She woke up to find a few vivid red maple leaves blooming in their garden. "When did you plant that?" "I planted it a long time ago." "You just never noticed." And indeed, Thiên An never did notice. The camellia oil she applied to her hair. The fig leaf rinse kept ready in the fridge. She used them all without ever asking how painstakingly Ho prepared them. Thiên An touched the smooth red leaf. "It's beautiful. My husband is romantic sometimes. If only you knew how to play the piano or sing, I would love you so much." Thiên An's words suddenly hung heavy in Ho's lowered gaze. Against the deep red of the maple leaf, both their smiles were strained. 2 years into the marriage, they hadn't conceived. The doctor said both were healthy. It was simply because they weren't in sync. Thiên An offered a sad smile. One day, Emin visited and saw Ho hunched over a stove, brewing medicinal herbs for his wife. Emin whispered to Thiên An, "You need to ease up. You let your husband fuss over you all day, taking care of you like 100 babies. And yet you're so aloof." Thiên An laughed aloud. "I need someone to pity him for me." Emin shook her head. "I mean it. You're lucky and you don't even know it. I only wish I could marry a man half as good as your husband." Thiên An gently twisted her wedding ring, a silent sorrow rising in her heart. Years had passed, the bookstore grew busier, and Emin grew older, yet she neither married nor accepted anyone's courtship. For years after Thiên An's wedding, Ton was transferred to the deputy director of the library in their district. People said it was a stepping stone to a higher position. Since the library and the ceramics workshop often had dealings, Thiên An saw Ton more often. It was all purely professional, but whenever Ho saw his wife standing for a long time in front of the mirror, applying a touch of lipstick before leaving for the workshop, her lips faintly humming, "The Autumn River of Love," Ho would turn away, hiding a silent sigh. One day, at an industry social event, Thiên An drank too much. Ton was there and introduced his fiancée. When Thiên An stumbled home, Ho had to carry her. The scent of wine mixed with Ho's clothes made Thiên An violently ill. In the morning, Ho discovered that she had been sick right onto the maple leaf bush he had planted for the first winter bloom. The innocent red leaves were sharp like blades pointed directly at Ho's heart. When Thiên An saw the divorce papers with Ho's signature placed on the table, she was stunned. She had never once considered the possibility that her husband would be the one to initiate the divorce. "Did I do something wrong?" That was the only question Thiên An asked her husband before she signed the papers. Ho shook his head sadly. "No, you didn't do anything wrong. I just find this marriage too lonely. I am lonely, so the fault is mine." Ho left the divorce papers on the table. He also left the small house they shared to Thiên An. She didn't know where he went after packing his clothes. She thought Ho was merely angry and would return in 2 or 3 days in a dramatic, unexpected way, just as he always did, sneaking home after she left for work, cooking a delicious meal, hiding in the room, and then jumping out to surprise her and quickly making up. Ho loved her so much, a tiny scratch on her foot would cause him distress. How could he possibly abandon her? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks passed. The divorce papers remained on the table, but Ho did not return. Thiên An realized that she was beginning to miss him. Looking at the maple leaves turning red in the garden, she missed Ho's form hunched over, burying the bulbs deep into the earth. When she caught the fragrant scent of pumpkin soup from a neighbor's kitchen, she imagined Ho standing in their small kitchen, spooning the first taste into his mouth, asking if the flavor was right. When the calluses on her feet ached, she remembered Ho's hands, massaging them while cooing, "Don't wear high heels anymore. Tomorrow, I'll go to the district supermarket and buy you a pair of soft leather flats. Since Ho left, strangely, the thought of Ton and his piano seemed to fade into a blur in Tianan's mind. She only longed fiercely for the heavy scent of her husband's sweat and his dazzling, bright smile. 2 months later, Tianan placed the divorce papers in a drawer, no longer intending to submit them to the court. She visited her mother, and the senior artisan's wife was teary-eyed. She said Ho had quit his job to move to the south to help MN with the used bookstore. MN had also moved out of the market 2 months ago. Tianan felt a great, sudden emptiness in her heart. Outside, the season of the red leaves was already beginning to fade.